The arena stank of blood and fear. Danny Wright pressed his back against the cold metal wall and watched another cadet get thrown across the room like a broken toy. The creature responsible stood 12 feet tall with scales that looked like black armor, and 6 limbs that ended in claws sharp enough to cut through steel. Everyone called it the Ravager. Everyone feared it. This was the Crimson Star Military Academy floating in space between 2 dying suns. Warriors from across the galaxy came here to prove themselves. The final test of the second year was simple. Enter the arena. Face the Ravager. Survive 3 minutes. Most cadets left on stretchers. Some left in pieces that medical teams had to put back together. Danny was human. That made him the weakest cadet in his entire class. Humans were slow compared to the Silani who could move faster than eyes could follow. Humans were fragile compared to the Torgun, who had bones like metal and skin like stone. Humans were small compared to the Crawl whose warriors stood 8 feet tall and could tear doors off their hinges. The observation deck above the arena was packed with instructors and students. They were all watching a Crawl cadet named Boruk try to fight the Ravager. Boruk was good. He had won every combat drill for the past year. He moved into the arena with confidence, roaring a challenge that echoed off the walls. The Ravager charged. Boruk charged back. They met in the middle with a sound like thunder. For 3 seconds, the Crawl warrior held his ground. Then the Ravager's tail whipped around and caught him in the ribs. Boruk flew 15 feet and hit the wall hard enough to crack it. Medical drones rushed in before his 3 minutes were even up. A Silani girl named Quickstep went next. She lived up to her name, dancing around the Ravager's attacks with incredible speed. But the creature was faster. It caught her leg with one claw and slammed her into the ground. She crawled out of the arena with both arms broken. Then came a Torgan named Stoneskin who tried to wrestle the Ravager. The fight lasted 2 minutes before the creature pinned him down and roared in his face. Stoneskin admitted defeat. At least he could walk out on his own feet. Danny watched each fight carefully. He noticed things. The Ravager was fast, but it always attacked the same way. When cadets ran at it with weapons raised, it went for their legs first. When they tried to circle it, the creature herded them into corners. When they showed fear, it pressed harder. When they showed aggression, it met them with overwhelming violence. The creature was not just fighting. It was testing them, responding to them, like it was trained to do this over and over again. An instructor called Danny's name. His stomach tightened. Around him, other cadets whispered. Some felt sorry for him. Others wondered why the academy even let humans take this test. A Crawl student said humans should stick to desk jobs where they could not get hurt. Danny walked down the stairs to the arena entrance. His hands were steady, but his heart hammered in his chest. An older instructor named Brell stopped him at the door. Brell was Torgan, built like a mountain with scars covering his gray skin. You don't have to do this, human, Brell said. His voice was surprisingly gentle. No one will think less of you. Yes, they will, Danny said quietly. And I'll think less of myself. Brell studied him for a long moment, then nodded. The creature is chained to the center post. The chains let it reach anywhere in the arena. You have 3 minutes. Medical teams are ready. Try not to die. The door opened. Danny stepped through. The arena was bigger than it looked from above. The floor was made of some kind of gray stone covered in scratches and dark stains that Danny tried not to think about. The walls rose 30 feet high. The observation deck wrapped around the top where hundreds of faces looked down at him. In the center of the arena, the Ravager waited. Heavy chains connected its back legs to a massive post driven into the floor. The chains were long, very long. The creature could reach any corner of the space. It saw Danny and went completely still. Its 6 eyes, arranged in 2 rows of 3, focused on him. Its nostrils flared as it smelled him. Then it moved. The Ravager charged with terrifying speed. Its claws tore up chunks of stone as it ran. Danny could hear the instructors above shouting warnings. His training said to dodge, to roll, to get his weapon ready. But Danny did not move. He stood perfectly still and watched the creature come. The Ravager stopped 3 feet away. Its hot breath washed over Danny's face. Its eyes stared at him with confusion. Every other cadet had run or fought or screamed. This small human just stood there, meeting its gaze without challenge or fear. The creature tilted its massive head like it was trying to solve a puzzle. Danny kept his breathing steady. He had grown up on a colony ship where families kept animals from Earth. Dogs, cats, even a few reptiles. He learned young that predators responded to body language. Show fear, they press harder. Show aggression, they fight back. Show calm confidence, they pause to evaluate. The Ravager circled him slowly. Danny turned to keep facing it, but made no other movement. He kept his hands at his sides. His weapon stayed in its holster. Above them, the observation deck had gone silent. No one had ever seen the Ravager hesitate before. The creature circled twice, then sat back on its haunches. It was still watching Danny with those 6 eyes, studying him, waiting for him to do something. Danny noticed scars on the Ravager's shoulders and flanks, old marks from training collars and punishment prods. This creature had been hurt many times, taught to attack anything that showed aggression, taught to destroy anything that showed fear. But no one had ever taught it what to do with calm. Slowly, carefully, Danny sat down cross-legged on the arena floor. The watching crowd gasped. Some thought he was giving up. Others thought he had frozen in terror. But Danny just sat there, hands resting on his knees, looking up at the massive predator. "You're tired, aren't you?" he said quietly. His voice was steady and low. "Tired of fighting scared kids. Tired of people screaming at you. Tired of hurting people because that's all they taught you to do." The Ravager's head tilted further. It took one step closer, then another. Danny kept talking, filling the silence with soft words about nothing important. He talked about Earth, about the dogs he used to raise, about how predators in the wild only fought when they had to. The 3-minute timer counted down. 2 minutes left. Then 1 minute. Then 30 seconds. The Ravager sat 5 feet away from Danny, just watching him. Not attacking. Not threatening. Just being. The timer buzzed. 3 minutes were up. Danny had survived without a scratch. The first cadet ever to do so. But Danny did not stand up. He looked up at the observation deck where Instructor Brell stood. "Can I stay a little longer?" Danny asked. The entire academy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Silence filled the observation deck like water filling a tank. Hundreds of cadets and instructors stared down at the human sitting peacefully in the arena, while the galaxy's most dangerous training beast watched him like a confused puppy. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They all waited for Instructor Brell to make a decision. Brell was old enough to have fought in 3 wars. He had seen soldiers die in every way possible. He had watched cadets break under pressure and warriors crack under fire, but he had never seen anything like this. A human, the weakest species in the academy, sitting calmly in front of a creature that had sent a crawl warrior to the medical bay just minutes ago. 5 more minutes, Brell said finally. His voice carried through the speakers into the arena. "But the moment that beast moves wrong, we pull you out. Understand?" Danny nodded. He did not take his eyes off the Ravager. The creature had not moved since Danny sat down. It just watched him with 6 eyes that showed more intelligence than anyone had given it credit for. Around the observation deck, reactions split into 2 camps. Some instructors were furious, saying this was a violation of protocol. Others were fascinated, leaning forward to watch every detail. The cadets whispered among themselves. A few placed bets on how long Danny would last. Most bet he would be dead within a minute. Danny slowly moved his hand forward, not reaching toward the Ravager, just extending it palm down in the space between them, an offering, a sign of peace. The creature's nostrils flared as it smelled his scent. The Ravager stood up. Its full height was terrifying up close. Muscles rippled under its scaled hide. Its claws scraped against the stone floor. Every cadet watching expected it to attack. Instead, the creature took one careful step toward Danny, then another. Its head lowered until its snout was inches from Danny's extended hand. Hot breath washed over Danny's skin. He could smell old blood on the Ravager's teeth. He could see the scars along its jaw where training collars had rubbed the scales raw. He could see one eye that had been damaged long ago, now clouded with age. This was not a young beast. It had been doing this for years, fighting cadet after cadet, attacking because that was what its trainers demanded. "You're not a monster," Danny said softly. "You're just doing what they made you do." The Ravager's tongue flicked out and touched Danny's palm. Just a brief contact, testing. Danny did not flinch. He kept his hand steady. The creature pulled back and made a sound deep in its throat. Not a growl. Something else, softer. Above them, a Solani instructor named Quickmind was recording everything. She had studied animal behavior across dozens of worlds. She had never seen a Ravager respond like this. They were supposed to be pure predators, driven by instinct and training to attack anything that entered their space. This one was showing curiosity, maybe even recognition. Danny slowly stood up. The movement was careful and smooth. He kept his eyes on the Ravager but did not stare directly into its eyes. In the wild, direct eye contact was a challenge. Danny had learned that from the wolves people kept on the colony ships. Look near them, not at them. Show you see them, but you're not threatening them. The Ravager stood as well. It towered over Danny, easily twice his height. One swipe of its claws could kill him instantly, but the creature just watched as Danny took a slow step to the side, then another. He was walking around the arena, testing to see if the beast would follow. It did. The Ravager moved with him, keeping the same distance. Its chains dragged across the floor with a sound like metal rain. Its 6 legs moved with surprising grace for something so large. When Danny stopped, it stopped. When Danny moved, it moved. They were connected now, linked by something the observers could not fully understand. A crawl commander named Vorak slammed his fist on the observation deck railing. "This is foolishness," he growled. "The human is not fighting. He is not showing any warrior spirit. He sits like prey and the beast is confused. Nothing more." Brel did not look away from the arena. If the beast was confused, it would attack. Confused predators are the most dangerous. This one is calm. Danny approached the side of the arena where the Ravager's chains connected to the center post. He could see where the metal had worn grooves into the creature's legs from years of use. The skin around the chains was scarred and rough. Danny reached out slowly toward one of those scars. The Ravager went very still. Every muscle in its body tensed. This was the moment. This was where it would either trust him or kill him. Danny's hand touched the scarred hide. The texture was rough like tree bark but warm with body heat. "I'm sorry they hurt you," Danny said. He meant it. He could feel anger rising in his chest at the people who had chained this intelligent creature and forced it to fight children year after year. The Ravager made that soft sound again. Then it did something that made the entire observation deck gasp. It lowered its massive head down until its snout touched the arena floor. Its neck bent in a position of complete submission. A bow. The beast was bowing to the human. Vorak stood up so fast his chair fell over. Impossible. Ravagers do not bow. They do not submit. This is a trick, but it was not a trick. Danny stood beside the bowed creature with his hand still resting on its scarred shoulder. He looked up at the observation deck with confusion in his eyes. "What do I do now?" He called up to them. Brel made a decision. "Clear the arena. Seal all exits except the north door. Right, I want you to walk slowly toward that door. We'll see if the beast follows or attacks." Danny nodded. He took his hand off the Ravager and walked toward the north side of the arena. Behind him he heard the creature stand. He heard its chains rattle. He heard its claws click on stone. But he did not hear it charge. When Danny looked back, the Ravager was following him like a giant dog following its owner. They reached the door together. Medical teams waited outside with weapons ready. Handlers with shock prods stood prepared to drive the Ravager back if needed. But the creature showed no aggression. It stayed close to Danny, watching the armed people with wariness but not rage. "We need to separate them," a handler said nervously. "Get the human clear and drive the beast back to its holding pen." "No," Brel said. He had come down from the observation deck. He stood studying Danny and the Ravager with eyes that had seen 40 years of military service. "I want them both taken to holding area 7. It's large enough for the beast. Wright stays with it. Postguards outside. Nobody goes in without my permission." The handlers looked at him like he was insane. "Sir, that creature could kill him in seconds." "That creature could have killed him 10 minutes ago," Brel replied. "It chose not to. I want to know why." "Right. Are you willing to stay with it?" Danny looked at the Ravager. The creature looked back at him with those 6 eyes. Some understanding passed between them. "Yes," Danny said. "I'll stay." They walked together through the academy halls. Cadets pressed against walls to let them pass. Some stared in awe, others in disbelief. A human who should have died was walking beside the deadliest beast in the academy like they were old friends. Holding Area 7 was a large room with reinforced walls and a high ceiling. The handlers brought in the Ravager's chains and secured them to anchors in the floor, though the chains were long enough to give the creature freedom to move around the whole space. They brought in food for the beast and water for Danny. Then they sealed the door and left them alone. Danny sat down against one wall. The Ravager circled the room once, then lay down facing him. Neither of them moved for a long time. Outside, the academy was buzzing with questions. Inside, a human and a beast rested together in silence. "You need a name," Danny said finally. "I can't just keep calling you the Ravager. How about Storm? You move like a storm when you fight." The creature's tail thumped once against the floor. Danny decided to take that as agreement. He closed his eyes and leaned his head back against the wall. He was exhausted. The fear and tension had drained him. Within minutes, he was asleep. Storm watched the sleeping human for hours. The creature had fought thousands of battles. It had hurt hundreds of cadets. It had been shocked and beaten and starved into obedience, but no one had ever touched its scars with gentleness. No one had ever sat with it in peace. No one had ever called it by a name. Outside the holding area, the academy was changing. Word was spreading to other stations, other worlds. A human had done the impossible, and everyone wanted to know how. 3 days passed. The academy had never been so divided. In the training halls, cadets argued about what Danny had done. In the instructor lounges, teachers debated what it meant. In the command center, academy leadership held emergency meetings that stretched through the night. Danny spent every hour in holding Area 7 with Storm. He slept there. He ate there. He only left for quick trips to the bathroom. The rest of his time, he stayed with the Ravager. They did not do much. Sometimes Danny talked. Sometimes he sat in silence. Sometimes he watched Storm move around the large room, learning the creature's body language. Storm was surprisingly gentle once you knew how to read it. When the creature was content, its tail stayed low and relaxed. When it was curious, its head tilted to the right. When it was uncomfortable, one specific ridge of scales along its back would rise slightly. Danny learned all of these signals. Storm learned his too. The beast could tell when Danny was tired by how he walked. It could sense when Danny was nervous by his breathing. On the morning of the 4th day, Instructor Brell came to the holding area with 3 other people. One was Quickmind, the Solani behavioral specialist. Another was a human medical officer named Dr. Lin. The third was a grizzled old crawl warrior named General Roth, who ran the Academy's combat programs. Danny stood up when they entered. Storm rose as well, positioning itself between Danny and the visitors. Not aggressive, protective. "Relax, big guy," Danny said quietly. "They're not here to hurt us." Storm settled, but kept watching the visitors carefully. Brell gestured to the others. "We've been studying what happened." Dr. Lin examined all the medical records. Quickmind reviewed hours of arena footage. General Roth consulted historical databases. "We want to understand this." Dr. Lin stepped forward. She was small even for a human, but her voice was clear and confident. "We scanned you 17 times, Danny. No drugs, no pheromones, no technology. You did not trick this creature, so we researched Earth. Do you know what we found?" Danny shook his head. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world," Dr. Lin continued. "The galaxy has ranked it as one of the most dangerous planets where intelligent life evolved. High gravity, extreme weather, predators everywhere. Most species from death worlds become solitary and aggressive, but humans went the opposite direction. You became social. You formed packs, not just with each other but with other predators." Quickmind spoke next, her words coming fast like her species always talked. "Your ancestors took wolves, the apex predators of your world, and turned them into dogs. You took wild cats and made them companions. You even rode prey animals like horses. No other species has done this so completely. You evolved to bond across species lines because that was how you survived." General Roth crossed his arms. His voice was rough like gravel. "The Ravager has been used in trials for 40 years. Thousands of cadets have faced it. All of them approached it as an enemy to defeat or a trial to survive. You approached it as a potential friend. The beast had no training for that response." "Storm isn't an it," Danny said quietly. "Storm is alive, intelligent. You've all been treating Storm like a weapon or a test. But Storm thinks and feels." "Storm?" Roth asked. "That's the name I gave. That's Storm's name now." Brell watched Danny with an expression that was hard to read. "The Academy Council has been debating what to do. Some want to separate you immediately. They say what you did was dangerous and breaks all protocols. Others want to study this bond. They say it could change how we understand war beasts across the galaxy. There's a third group," Quickmind added. "They want to test whether this bond is real or temporary. They want to see if it holds under pressure." Danny felt his stomach tighten. "What kind of pressure?" General Roth stepped forward. His scarred face was serious. "A combat trial. You and the Ravager against armed opponents. It will prove whether this bond works in real battle or falls apart when blood is drawn. Storm. Danny corrected automatically. And who would we be fighting? Combat drones, Roth replied. Programmed for non-lethal but realistic combat. 20 of them. You would have 15 minutes to neutralize all targets. If you succeed, it proves your method has military value. If you fail, we separate you and the beast permanently. Danny looked at Storm. The creature was watching him with those 6 intelligent eyes. If I say no, then we separate you anyway, Brell said, not unkindly. The Council needs to know this is not a dangerous anomaly. The only way to prove that is through testing. Dr. Lin moved closer to Danny. You don't have to do this. This isn't what you signed up for. But Danny knew he did have to do it. If he refused, Storm would go back to the arena. Back to fighting scared cadets year after year. Back to being treated like a weapon instead of a living being. When is the trial? 3 days, Roth said. That gives you time to prepare. After the instructors left, Danny sat down heavily. Storm came over and rested its massive head on Danny's lap. The weight was enormous but comforting. We're in trouble, Storm, Danny said quietly. I've never been in real combat, and you've never fought with someone instead of against them. Storm made that soft rumbling sound deep in its throat, the sound that meant contentment or agreement. Danny was not sure which. The next 3 days changed everything. Danny requested access to the training simulations. When the Academy approved, he brought Storm. At first, the handlers refused to allow a Ravager in the training rooms. But Brell overruled them. Danny and Storm needed to learn how to work together. The early sessions were disasters. Danny tried to give commands like Storm was a trained war dog. But Storm was not a dog. The creature had its own intelligence, its own way of thinking. When Danny shouted orders, Storm got confused. When Danny tried to direct every move, they got in each other's way. On the second day, Danny changed his approach. Instead of commands, he made suggestions. Instead of orders, he shared information. 3 targets on the left instead of attack the left. Storm could see the targets. Storm knew how to fight. Danny just needed to help the creature choose priorities. It worked better. Storm would handle the combat while Danny watched the bigger picture. When enemies tried to flank them, Danny called out warnings. When Storm got focused on one target, Danny pointed out others. They were not commander and weapon. They were partners sharing information. Other cadets started watching their training sessions. A young Solani girl who had broken her arms in the arena came every day. A Torgan who had wrestled Storm and lost brought friends to observe. Even some instructors stopped by to watch. They saw something new. A human and a Ravager moving together like they shared one mind. Commander Vorak came to watch on the 3rd day. He stood in the observation area with his arms crossed and his face showing disgust. When Danny and Storm finished their session, Vorak activated the communication system. You have made the beast soft, human. You have taken a warrior and turned it into a pet. Danny looked up at the observation window. Storm growled low, sensing Danny's anger. Storm was never soft. Storm was trapped. There's a difference. We will see, Vorak replied. Tomorrow the trial will prove whether your pet can still fight. I wager it cannot. That night Danny could not sleep. He lay on the floor of holding Area 7 with Storm curled around him like a living wall. The creature's breathing was steady and deep. Danny envied that calm. His mind kept racing through everything that could go wrong tomorrow. Storm could get hurt. Danny could mess up and get them both hurt. The drones could overwhelm them. The bond could break under pressure. I'm scared, Danny admitted to the darkness. I don't want to let you down. Storm's tail moved slightly, curling tighter around Danny. The creature's head shifted so one eye could look at him. In that eye, Danny saw something he had never expected to find in a Ravager. Trust. Complete, absolute trust that Danny would not fail them. Danny took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Okay, tomorrow we show them what we can do. Together. He finally fell asleep with one hand resting on Storm's scaled hide. Outside, the Academy prepared for the most watched combat trial in its history. Inside, a human and a Ravager rested before their greatest test. The combat simulation arena was 3 times larger than the trial arena, where Danny had first met Storm. The ceiling stretched 40 feet high. The floor was divided into sections that simulated different terrain with buildings, walls, trenches, and open ground. Every cadet in the Academy had requested permission to watch. The observation decks were packed so full that some students had to stand. Danny stood at the entrance with Storm beside him. The creature was tense. Storm could sense this was different from their training sessions. The energy in the air felt wrong, dangerous. Danny put his hand on Storm's shoulder and felt the muscles coiled tight as springs beneath the scales. "We've trained for this," Danny said quietly. "We know how to work together. Just stay with me." Storm's head turned to look at him. Six eyes met too. Then the creature made a soft, chuffing sound and bumped its snout against Danny's shoulder. "Ready." The arena doors opened. Danny and Storm walked inside together. The doors sealed behind them with a heavy metal sound that echoed through the space. Above them, the observation decks were silent. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species watched and waited. A voice crackled through the speakers. "General Roth, the trial begins in 30 seconds. 20 combat drones will activate in sequence. Your objective is to neutralize all targets within 15 minutes. The drones are programmed to use non-lethal force, but their weapons will hurt. A lot. You may withdraw at any time by calling for emergency extraction. Doing so means automatic failure." Danny and Storm moved toward the center of the arena. Danny's heart was hammering. His hands were sweaty, but his breathing was steady. He had learned that from Storm. The creature never panicked, never rushed. Even when fighting, Storm stayed controlled. 10 seconds, Roth announced. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin. Hatches opened in the walls. Combat drones poured out. They were humanoid machines built for training, each one armed with weapons that fired painful but non-lethal energy rounds. 20 drones. They spread out immediately, taking tactical positions. Their sensors locked onto Danny and Storm. The first drone fired. Danny dropped behind cover. Storm charged. The creature moved with terrifying speed, crossing 30 feet in seconds. The drone tried to dodge, but Storm was too fast. One claw strike and the machine went down, sparking and disabled. 3 more drones opened fire from different directions. Danny spotted them from his cover. "Storm, high right, 2 targets," Storm leaped. The creature's powerful legs launched it 15 feet into the air. It crashed into one drone and used the momentum to swing its tail into the second. Both machines crumpled. But while Storm was in the air, 2 drones flanked around and fired. Energy rounds hit Storm's side. The creature roared in pain but did not stop moving. Danny felt anger flash through him. They were hurting Storm. He pushed the emotion down. Anger made you stupid. Anger made you reckless. He needed to think. "Storm, back to me." Defensive position. Storm bounded back to Danny's location. They had trained for this. When outnumbered, you don't spread out. You stay together and control the space around you. Danny pressed his back against Storm's side. The creature's bulk became his shield. Together, they had 360-degree awareness. Danny watched forward and right. Storm watched left and behind. The drones adapted. They stopped trying to overwhelm with direct attacks. Instead, they began coordinating. 3 drones created a suppressing fire pattern while others moved to flank. Military tactics. Programmed by instructors who knew how to fight. But Danny had something the drones did not. He had Storm. And Storm had instincts that no program could match. When the flanking drones got close, Storm sensed them before Danny saw them. The creature spun and attacked in one fluid motion. 2 more drones went down. Up in the observation deck, QuickMind was recording everything. She spoke to the instructors around her. "Watch how they communicate. The human uses minimal words. The Ravager responds to tone and gesture. They have developed a shared language in just days. This should take months of training." Commander Vorak watched with his jaw clenched. The beast is taking damage. It will break. But Storm did not break. Yes, the energy rounds hurt. Yes, the creature had scorch marks on its scales. But Storm trusted Danny to protect them both. That trust was stronger than pain. Danny spotted an opportunity. A narrow corridor between 2 simulated buildings. "Storm corridor now!" They ran together. The drones followed, funneling into the tight space. That was the mistake Danny had been waiting for. In the narrow corridor, the drones could not surround them. They had to come straight on, and head to head, Storm was unstoppable. The creature became a whirlwind of claws and tail and teeth. Drones fell one after another. Danny stayed close, watching for any that tried to climb the walls or flank around. He grabbed a piece of broken drone and threw it at one trying to get above them. The impact disrupted its sensors long enough for Storm to reach it. 8 drones down, 12 remaining. And Danny and Storm were just getting started. They burst out of the corridor into an open area. The remaining drones had repositioned, learning from their fallen units. They set up a crossfire pattern. No matter which direction Danny and Storm moved, they would be caught in overlapping fields of fire. Danny's mind raced. This was exactly like a tactical problem from his classes. Except in class, the answer was to call for support or retreat. Here they had neither option. Storm, trust me on this. When I say go, you charge straight at the center group. Full speed. Don't stop. Storm tensed. Ready. The creature did not understand the plan but trusted Danny completely. Go. Storm charged. Energy rounds hit from multiple directions. The creature roared in pain but did not slow down. Danny ran beside Storm using the creature's bulk as cover. The drones in the center position had two choices. Hold position and get trampled or scatter. They scattered. As soon as the formation broke, Danny and Storm were through. Now the drones were behind them with no clean shots. Danny and Storm had broken the crossfire. Left wall, use it for cover. They pressed against a solid barrier. Now the drones could only attack from one direction. Storm handled the front. Danny watched for any trying to climb over. They held the position for a full minute, taking down 3 more drones that were foolish enough to rush them. 9 drones left. 6 minutes remaining. Danny's muscles were burning. Storm was breathing hard, sides heaving. The creature had taken dozens of hits. But they were winning. The remaining drones tried a different strategy. They stayed at range and fired in coordinated volleys, forcing Danny and Storm to stay pinned behind cover. The clock was ticking down. If they stayed defensive, they would run out of time. Danny looked at Storm. The creature looked back. Some understanding passed between them without words. They both knew what had to happen next. No more defensive fighting. Time to end this. Storm, I need you to trust me completely. I'm going to do something crazy. When you see an opening, take it. Don't hesitate. Don't protect me. Just finish them. Storm made a sound that might have been protest. The creature did not want to leave Danny exposed. But Danny gripped Storm's scales with both hands and looked into those 6 eyes. I trust you to finish this. You need to trust me to survive, deal? Storm's tail thumped once, deal. Danny took a deep breath. Then he stepped out from behind cover and ran straight at the closest group of drones. Energy rounds hit him immediately. Pain exploded across his chest and legs. He went down hard, rolling across the rough ground. The drones converged on him. Sensors locked on the fallen human. They never saw Storm coming. The creature had circled wide the moment Danny ran. While every drone focused on the easy target, Storm attacked from their blind side. It was slaughter. Storm moved through them like a force of nature. Claws and tail and teeth. 4 drones went down in seconds. The remaining 5 drones tried to retarget, but they were caught between Danny and Storm now. Danny was back on his feet despite the pain. He grabbed a broken drone arm and used it as a club, smashing sensors and joints. He was not strong enough to destroy them alone, but he was strong enough to distract them. Storm finished the last drone with a crushing bite to its central processor. The machine sparked once and went dark. Silence fell over the arena. 20 drones disabled, 13 minutes and 47 seconds on the clock. They had won. Danny dropped the makeshift club and fell to his knees. Everything hurt. Storm bounded over immediately, making worried sounds and nudging Danny with its snout. I'm okay, Danny gasped. Just need a minute. We did it, Storm. We actually did it. Above them, the observation decks erupted. Not everyone was cheering. Some species saw this as proof that their way of fighting was wrong. Others saw it as a fluke. But enough were impressed that the noise was deafening. The arena doors opened. Medical teams rushed in. They went to Danny first, but he waved them toward Storm. Check Storm, please. Dr. Lin examined the Ravager while Danny watched. Storm was covered in scorch marks and minor burns, but nothing serious, nothing that would not heal. Your partner will be fine, Dr. Lin said with a smile. Probably has a higher pain tolerance than you do. General Roth entered the arena with Instructor Brell. The old crawl warrior looked at the destruction around them. 20 disabled drones, a human barely able to stand, a Ravager that should have turned on its partner under stress but instead fought beside him. I have seen many battles in my life, Roth said slowly, but I have never seen anything like this. You fought like one being with 2 bodies. That's what partners do, Danny said. He was leaning against Storm now. The creature had positioned itself to support his weight. We watch out for each other. Brell helped Danny to his feet. The council will want a full report. But I can tell you now, this changes things. You have proven that bond-based fighting has tactical value. Commander Vorak stood in the arena entrance. His face was unreadable. He looked at Danny and Storm for a long moment. Then slowly he gave a small nod of respect before turning and walking away. Even he could not deny what had just happened. Danny and Storm were escorted to medical. As they walked through the academy halls, cadets stepped aside. Some reached out to touch Storm carefully. Others called congratulations to Danny. Everything had changed. The weakest species and the most dangerous beast had become something greater together. In medical, Dr. Lin treated Danny's injuries while Storm lay nearby, refusing to leave his side. "You know this is not the end," Dr. Lin said quietly. "Now everyone will want to study this. Want to replicate it. Want to understand how you did it." "I know," Danny said. He reached out and placed a hand on Storm's head. The creature leaned into his touch. "But they can't replicate this." "Not really. Because this was not a technique or a strategy. This was just two beings who decided to trust each other." Storm's tail thumped against the floor in agreement. Outside the medical bay, the academy buzzed with excitement and debate. But inside, a human and a ravager rested together in peace. Partners, friends. Proof that the galaxy still had things to learn about the nature of strength. News traveled fast in the connected galaxy. Within 2 days, every major military academy had watched the recording of Danny and Storm's trial. Within a week, the video had spread to civilian networks. Within 2 weeks, delegations from 3 different worlds arrived at Crimson Star Academy, requesting demonstrations and explanations. Danny hated every minute of the attention. He was not a show performer. Storm was not a trained animal doing tricks. But Instructor Brell explained that this was bigger than Danny's comfort. The galaxy had spent thousands of years believing that warriors needed to dominate everything, including their tools and weapons. Danny and Storm had proven there might be a better way. The Academy created a new schedule for Danny. Half his time was spent in normal classes with other cadets. The other half was spent working with Storm in controlled demonstrations. Military observers came from across the allied galactic systems to watch. Some were convinced immediately, others remained skeptical. What nobody expected was how other cadets started changing their own approach. A Torgan student named Rockfist had failed the Ravager trial 3 times. Each time he had charged in with pure aggression and been thrown out within seconds. After watching Danny and Storm, Rockfist requested to try a 4th time. The instructors were hesitant. 3 failures usually meant permanent disqualification. But Rockfist insisted. Danny stood in the observation deck and watched as the massive Torgan entered the arena. Rockfist did not charge. He did not roar or beat his chest. He walked to the center of the arena and waited. The Ravager circled him, confused by the lack of aggression. Rockfist stayed calm, using breathing techniques Danny had shared. After 2 minutes, the Ravager sat down and just watched. Rockfist passed the trial without throwing a single punch. That changed everything. Other cadets started requesting retries. Not everyone succeeded. Some species were naturally too aggressive to overcome their instincts. But enough cadets succeeded using calmer approaches that the Academy had to reconsider its entire philosophy. Commander Vorak fought against the changes. He argued in council meetings that warriors were being made soft. That the old ways had worked for centuries. That one human and one beast did not prove a universal truth. He had supporters. Many of the older instructors agreed with him. The debate reached a breaking point 3 weeks after the trial. The Academy Council called a formal assembly. Every instructor and senior cadet was required to attend. Danny sat in the front row with Storm lying beside him. The creature had special permission to attend, though guards stood ready in case anything went wrong. General Roth spoke first. "We are here to decide the future of combat training at this academy. The question is simple. Do we continue teaching domination-based methods, or do we incorporate bond-based methods as an alternative approach?" Commander Vorak stood immediately. "I will speak against this foolishness. Warriors have always been strong. We have conquered worlds, won wars, and built empires through strength and dominance. Now we are told to sit with our enemies and make friends with them. This is weakness dressed as wisdom." Several instructors nodded in agreement. Vorak continued. "The human got lucky. The beast was old and tired. In real combat, when blood is flowing and death is close, these bonds will break. Soldiers need to know they can rely on themselves, not on some animal that might turn on them." Brell stood next. His voice was calm but firm. Commander Vorak speaks from experience. He has fought bravely, but he speaks from old experience. The galaxy is changing. We now face enemies who adapt, who use technology and tactics we have never seen. Warriors who only know how to dominate will fail against enemies who know how to cooperate. Quickmind spoke from her seat. I have studied the recordings extensively. The bond between Danny Wright and the Ravager called Storm is based on neurological patterns we find in successful pack predators. Humans evolve these patterns to survive on a death world. Other species have similar patterns, but most military training actively suppresses them. We have been training warriors to ignore their own biology. A Solani instructor named Fast Strike raised her hand. I was injured in the Ravager trial. Broke both arms. I thought I was a failure. Then I watched Danny. I realized my failure was not about strength. It was about approach. I have since worked with 3 cadets using modified methods. All 3 have passed trials they previously failed. More instructors spoke. The debate went on for hours. Danny sat quietly through most of it. Storm sensed his discomfort and pressed closer. The creature's warmth was comforting. Finally, General Roth asked Danny to speak. Danny stood slowly. Every eye in the assembly turned to him. He was just a second-year cadet, the youngest person in the room, the weakest by galactic standards, but he had done something no one else had done. That gave him a voice. I am not a great warrior, Danny began. I am not the strongest or the fastest. I probably never will be, but I learned something growing up on Earth and on colony ships. My species survived by working with other species. We took wolves and made them into dogs who hunted with us. We took horses and rode them into battle. We took cats who killed our pests and gave them shelter in return. He paused and put his hand on Storm's head. When I walked into that arena, I did not see an enemy. I saw a person, a living being who was tired and hurt and trapped. I treated Storm like I would want to be treated, with respect, with kindness. And Storm responded, not because I am special, because that is how intelligent beings respond when given the choice between fighting and friendship. Danny looked at Commander Vorak. You say bonds break in real combat. You are right. Sometimes they do. But domination also breaks. I have seen the medical reports. Cadets who try to overpower the Ravagers get hurt badly. Some get killed in real combat because they cannot adapt when their strength fails them. Storm and I got hurt in the trial, but we survived because we protected each other. That is not weakness. That is a different kind of strength. Vorak stood again. His face was hard. Pretty words from a human. But I do not accept them. If you truly believe bonds are stronger than domination, prove it. Face me in combat. If you and your beast can defeat me, I will accept these new methods. If you fail, all of this stops. We return to the old ways. The assembly erupted in arguments. Brel called for order. Commander Vorak, you are proposing a duel. That is highly irregular. But not against regulations, Vorak countered. The cadet has made claims about the superiority of his methods. I am offering him a chance to prove those claims. Or is he afraid? Danny felt Storm tense beside him. The creature sensed threat. Danny's first instinct was to refuse. Vorak was a veteran warrior, one of the most decorated fighters in the academy. Danny was a student who had barely passed basic combat courses, but he also knew that if he refused, everything would fall apart. The bond-based methods would be dismissed as theory that could not hold up in practice. I accept, Danny said quietly. Vorak smiled without warmth. Excellent. 1 week. Full combat simulation. Non-lethal weapons, but full contact. You and the beast against me. We will see whose methods are superior. After the assembly ended, Danny sat alone with Storm in holding Area 7. Dr. Lin found them there. She sat down beside Danny without asking permission. You know Vorak has been fighting for 30 years. He has won arena championships. He is killed in real wars. I know, Danny said. But if I back down now, everything we have proven means nothing. You could get seriously hurt. Storm could get hurt. Storm and I have been hurt before. We healed. Dr. Lin was quiet for a moment. The thing is, Danny, Vorak is not completely wrong. Bonds do break under enough pressure. Domination-based training exists because it works in many situations. What you have with Storm is beautiful, but it might not be enough against a warrior like Vorak. Danny looked at Storm. The creature looked back. Maybe it will not be enough, Danny admitted, but it is all I have, and it is what I believe in. Over the next week, Danny and Storm trained harder than ever before. They practiced in combat simulations. They worked on new strategies. They studied recordings of Vorak's previous fights. The crawl commander was incredibly skilled. He used a fighting style that combined brutal strength with surprising speed. He had no obvious weaknesses. Other cadets came to watch Danny train. Word of the challenge had spread through the academy. Some students supported Danny. Others placed bets on Vorak. A few tried to offer advice. Rockfist, the Torgun who had passed his trial using Danny's methods, became a regular visitor. "You cannot match Vorak's strength," Rockfist said. "So do not try. Use what makes you different." "What makes me different is Storm," Danny replied. "No," Rockfist said. "What makes you different is that you think while you fight. Vorak is all instinct and training. You analyze and adapt. Use that." On the night before the challenge, Danny could not sleep. He lay beside Storm and stared at the ceiling. "I am scared," he admitted to the creature. "Not just of losing. I am scared that if we lose, you will go back to the arena. Back to fighting scared cadets every year. I do not want that for you." Storm made a soft rumbling sound and moved closer. The creature's tail wrapped around Danny protectively. In that moment, Danny understood something important. This fight was not about proving bond-based methods were better than domination. This fight was about showing that there was more than one way to be strong. Even if they lost, that message would survive. "Okay," Danny said to the darkness. "Tomorrow we show them everything we have learned. Not because we need to win, but because it is worth fighting for." Storm's tail thumped twice in agreement. Outside, the academy prepared for the most anticipated combat match in recent history. Inside, a human and a Ravager rested together, drawing strength from their bond before the battle ahead. The combat arena was filled beyond capacity. Cadets stood in the aisles because every seat was taken. Instructors from other academies had arrived overnight to witness the match. Some beings watched from remote feeds across multiple star systems. This was no longer just a challenge between a cadet and a commander. This had become a referendum on the future of warrior training across the galaxy. Danny stood at the south entrance with Storm beside him. His armor felt heavy. The non-lethal weapons strapped to his belt felt useless against someone like Vorak. But he kept his breathing steady. Storm sensed his nervousness and pressed against him, offering silent comfort. At the north entrance, Commander Vorak waited. The Crawl warrior wore traditional combat armor that left his muscular arms exposed. Scars covered his gray skin like a road map of battles won. He was 8 feet tall and built like a mountain. He looked at Danny and Storm across the arena with cold confidence. General Roth's voice echoed through the speakers. "This is a formal challenge combat. The match ends when one side is unable to continue or submits. Medical teams are standing by. The use of lethal force is prohibited. All participants have agreed to these terms. Combatants, take your positions." Danny and Storm walked to the center of the arena. Vorak moved to meet them. The Crawl commander stopped 10 feet away. "Last chance to withdraw, human. I will not hold back. The beast will not be enough to save you." "Storm," Danny corrected quietly. "And we are not trying to save each other. We are trying to fight together." Vorak's expression did not change. "We will see." General Roth began the countdown. "Combat begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Begin." Vorak charged immediately. His speed was shocking for someone his size. He covered the distance in heartbeats. Storm moved to intercept, but Vorak had expected that. The Crawl warrior threw a flashbang device. Blinding light filled the arena. Storm roared in confusion. Vorak used those seconds to slip past the creature and target Danny directly. Danny barely got his guard up in time. Vorak's first strike hit like a hammer. Danny felt his forearm go numb from the impact. He stumbled backward. Vorak followed with a combination of strikes, each one perfectly placed, each one testing Danny's defenses. Danny blocked what he could and dodged the rest, but he was completely on the defensive. Storm recovered from the flash and charged at Vorak from behind. The Crawl warrior heard the creature coming and dropped low, sweeping Storm's front legs out from under it. The Ravager crashed to the ground. Vorak was back on his feet before Storm could recover. The commander had fought plenty of large creatures before. He knew their weaknesses. Danny and Storm separated to flank Vorak from both sides. It was a tactic they had practiced. But Vorak countered by moving in tight circles, always keeping one of them in his line of sight while defending against the other. When Danny attacked, Vorak blocked. When Storm attacked, Vorak dodged. The Crawl Warrior was making it look easy. 3 minutes into the fight, Danny already had bruises forming. Storm had taken several hard hits, and Vorak looked barely winded. The observation decks were silent. Everyone could see how outmatched Danny and Storm were against a veteran warrior. Danny called Storm back. They needed to regroup. They had trained for this scenario, but training against drones was different from fighting someone with decades of real combat experience. Vorak did not press his advantage. He stood in the center of the arena, waiting, confident. "Your bond is not enough," Vorak called out. "The beast is powerful but undisciplined. You are clever but weak. Together you are still less than a true warrior." Danny's mind raced. Vorak was right about one thing. They could not beat him with direct combat. The Crawl Warrior was too skilled, too experienced. Danny and Storm needed to change the approach entirely. He looked at Storm, and an idea formed. Risky, maybe stupid, but it might work. "Storm, listen carefully. I need you to fight without me for the next minute. Go after Vorak, but do not commit to attacks. Stay mobile. Keep him busy." Storm made a questioning sound. The creature did not want to leave Danny exposed. But Danny gripped Storm's scales firmly. "Trust me. 1 minute. Then we finish this together." Storm huffed once and then charged at Vorak. The creature attacked with a flurry of claws and tail strikes. Vorak defended skillfully, looking for an opening to counterattack. While they fought, Danny circled around to the arena walls. He studied the terrain. The combat arena was designed with obstacles and cover. Danny started moving equipment, creating a specific pattern only he could see. Vorak knocked Storm back with a powerful kick. The creature tumbled but recovered quickly. The Crawl Warrior glanced toward Danny. "Hiding, human, or running?" Danny did not answer. He finished his preparation and called out, "Storm to me, now!" Storm disengaged and ran to Danny's position. Vorak followed, not willing to give them time to rest. As the commander charged, Danny and Storm ran. Not away, through a specific path between obstacles. Vorak pursued, confident he would catch them. That confidence was his mistake. Danny had spent the last minute creating a trap. As Vorak ran through the obstacle course, Danny had Storm make sharp turns at specific points. The Crawl Warrior followed, but Danny had positioned the obstacles to force Vorak into predictable paths. When they reached the center of Danny's trap, Danny gave the signal. Storm suddenly stopped and spun around. Vorak, moving at full speed, could not stop in time. He slammed into Storm's armored side. The impact would have killed a human. Storm barely flinched, but the collision put Vorak off balance for just a second. That second was all Danny needed. Danny had climbed onto a high obstacle while Vorak was focused on Storm. Now he dropped down behind the Crawl Warrior. Danny was not strong enough to hurt Vorak in direct combat, but he was smart enough to use leverage. He wrapped his arms around Vorak's neck in a chokehold, using his body weight to pull the larger warrior off balance. Vorak tried to throw Danny off, but Storm was already there. The creature pinned Vorak's legs with its body weight. Between Danny's hold and Storm's mass, the Crawl Warrior could not get the leverage to escape. Vorak struggled hard. His strength was incredible. But strength alone was not enough when you could not move properly. 30 seconds of struggle. Vorak's movements became weaker, not from damage but from the restricted blood flow to his brain from Danny's chokehold. The Crawl Warrior had two choices: submit or pass out. His pride wanted to keep fighting, but his warrior instincts recognized defeat. "Submit," Vorak said through gritted teeth. "I submit." Danny released the hold immediately and rolled away. Storm backed off, letting Vorak breathe. The Crawl Warrior stayed on his knees for a moment, catching his breath. The arena was silent. Nobody could believe what they had just witnessed. A second-year human cadet and a Ravager had defeated one of the Academy's most decorated warriors. General Roth's voice broke the silence. "The challenge is concluded. Victory to Cadet Wright and Storm. The observation decks erupted. Some beings cheered, others argued. The noise was deafening, but Danny only cared about Storm. He checked the creature for injuries. Storm had taken some hard hits, but nothing serious. You did great, Danny said quietly. Could not have done it without you. Vorak stood slowly. He looked at Danny with an expression that was hard to read. Anger? Respect? Maybe both. The Crawl warrior walked over to where Danny stood with Storm. Everyone watching tensed, unsure what would happen. Vorak stopped in front of Danny. Then slowly he bowed his head, not a deep bow, but enough to show acknowledgement. I underestimated you. Both of you. I thought bonds were weakness, but you used your bond to create strategy I did not anticipate. That is a warrior's skill. Thank you, Commander, Danny said, but we got lucky. You are a much better fighter than me. In direct combat, yes, Vorak agreed, but combat is not always direct. You knew your limitations and fought around them. That is also wisdom. He looked at Storm, and this creature trusted you enough to follow a plan it did not understand. That is the bond you spoke of. I see it now. Vorak turned to address the observation decks. His voice carried across the arena. I challenged these methods because I believed them weak. I was wrong. Not completely. Domination-based training has value, but so does bond-based training. Different approaches for different warriors. The human has proven his way works. I will no longer oppose incorporating these methods into academy training. The crowd's reaction was mixed, but the important thing was said. One of the strongest opponents to change had been convinced. That would matter in the Academy Council's decisions. Over the following weeks, everything changed at Crimson Star Academy. The combat programs were redesigned to offer 2 tracks: traditional domination-based training for warriors whose species and temperament suited that approach, and alternative bond-based training for those who showed aptitude for partnership methods. Not every cadet succeeded with bond training. Some species were too aggressive by nature, but enough cadets thrived under the new system that the results spoke for themselves. Other ravagers were introduced to bond-based handling. Most failed. The creatures had been too traumatized by years of punishment training. But 3 ravagers responded to careful, patient approach. They were assigned permanent handlers who trained with them instead of against them. Storm remained with Danny, now officially recognized as a partnership rather than a trial beast. Danny graduated 2 years later near the top of his class, not because of his combat scores. His fighting skills were still average by galactic standards, but his tactical thinking and leadership abilities were exceptional. Storm graduated with him in a ceremony that had to be specially arranged. No beast had ever received graduation honors before. But then Storm was no longer considered a beast. Storm was a partner, a warrior, a member of the Academy. They were assigned to a special unit that explored new combat methods. Other graduates joined them. Rockfist, the Torgun who had passed his trial using Danny's approach. Quickstep, the Solani who had broken her arms in the arena but learned from watching Danny. Even a young Crawl warrior who had been taught by Vorak but chose to train with bond methods instead. On their last day at the Academy, Danny stood in the original trial arena where he had first met Storm. The space looked smaller now, less frightening. He ran his hand along the scarred wall and remembered how scared he had been that day, how certain he was going to fail, how shocked he was when Storm bowed. Storm entered the arena behind him. The creature had grown since that first meeting. Better fed, better cared for. The scars were still there, but they looked different now. Not marks of punishment, marks of survival, proof that Storm had endured and overcome. Hard to believe it all started here, Danny said. You were supposed to be my test. Just 3 minutes of survival. Instead, you became my best friend. Storm made that soft rumbling sound of contentment. The creature moved close and lowered its head so Danny could rest his hand on the broad snout. They stood like that for a while, human and ravager, remembering where they began. Instructor Brell found them there. The old Torgun warrior had been promoted to head of combat training programs. The transport is ready, he said. Your unit ships out in an hour. Danny nodded. We are ready. Brell looked at them with something like pride. You know what you two did here will spread across the galaxy. Other academies are already requesting information about bond-based training. Some will adopt it. Some will reject it. But all of them will have to acknowledge it exists. That is because of you. It is because Storm gave me a chance, Danny corrected. I just did not waste it. Perhaps, Brell said. Or perhaps the beast recognized something in you that the rest of us missed. Humans are considered weak by galactic standards, small, fragile, but you come from a death world that taught you to survive by cooperation. That is a different kind of strength. One the galaxy is only beginning to understand. They walked together out of the arena. Behind them, the space where Danny and Storm had first connected stood empty. But it would not stay empty. Tomorrow, new cadets would enter. Some would face the Ravagers with aggression. Others would try Danny's approach. Not all would succeed. But they would have the choice. That was what mattered. On the transport ship, Danny sat with Storm in the cargo bay that had been modified to hold the creature. Other unit members were scattered around, preparing for their first real mission. Danny felt nervous excitement. Everything ahead was unknown. New worlds, new challenges, new threats, but he was not alone. Storm rested beside him, solid and warm and present. They had faced the trial arena together. They had fought Commander Vorak together. They had changed an entire academy's philosophy together. Whatever came next, they would face it the same way. As partners, as friends, as proof that the strongest bonds are not forged through domination, but through trust. Storm's tail wrapped gently around Danny's waist. The creature's breathing was slow and steady. Danny closed his eyes and let that rhythm calm his nerves. Outside the ship, stars streaked by as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. Inside, a human and a Ravager rested together, ready for whatever the galaxy would throw at them next. Because they had learned the most important lesson any warrior could learn. True strength is not about being the biggest or the fastest or the most aggressive. True strength is about finding someone you trust completely and knowing they trust you the same way. Everything else is just tactics. But trust is what makes warriors into legends, and sometimes the fiercest warrior is not the one who conquers the beast. It is the one the beast chooses to follow.